Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Amy.
Our project is called Mind, Body, and Soul, The Nature of Well-Being, and this podcast is just one small piece of the overall project. We are making a documentary that follows our hike on the Continental Divide Trail that will explore how spending time in nature affects a person's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
We are guinea pigs in a sense because we will be documenting our own experiences and recording changes that we find. Along the way, we are interviewing people about their experiences in nature to see how they have been affected.
Much of the benefits that come from being in nature are subjective, and therefore hard to measure in a quantifiable way. That's why we have turned to recording stories as a way to distribute this knowledge. Since the beginning of human culture, we have compressed valuable information into stories, and that's how we have shared wisdom throughout the generations.
We hope that the stories we gathered during this project will help spread some of the wisdom that can be found in the wilderness. Episode 7, an interview with Heather Sipes about getting into backpacking. Heather's introduction to backpacking was through Tony Pompa's company called True North Expeditions Incorporated. Her anxiety had been getting worse, but she knew that spending time in nature always made her feel better. Even though she had very little experience with backpacking, she took a leap of faith and joined their guided backpacking trip on the Appalachian Trail. Now long hikes in nature are a part of her self-care routine, and her knowledge and confidence is growing with every trip.
What do you do for a living?
I am an administrator at the Galesburg Public Library and also the executive director of the Galesburg Library Foundation.
What made you decide to reach out to Tony for the first time to do a backpacking trip?
I've been wanting to get into backpacking for quite some time, and it's one of those, it was like my interest. I didn't have anybody close to me that had the same interest, so the desire was there, but I didn't really have the means to know how to go about doing something like that. So then I stumbled upon Tony's group, and it was just kind of all laid out for me. I didn't have to worry about planning anything, and so it's like I could learn about backpacking in a safe environment where I had support, should anything go wrong or if I have questions.
Do you think that's like a common thing for somebody to not have any friends who are into this?
From what the people I've met so far, it seems, to be kind of common, especially I see a lot of women do it, and then we are pretty singular in our interests, and then when you start to come together, you meet more people, you're like, oh, a lot more people are into this. We've just all been kind of hanging back, afraid to step out because we just didn't have anybody else to do it with.
That's kind of the experience I've had on through hikes, because for me, for the first time I was planning a through hike, none of my friends wanted to do that. They all thought it was kind of crazy. It was like, who wants to just quit their life for 3 months, and it's going to be a big investment, it's going to cost a lot of money and time and everything, and you feel kind of like, I don't know if outcast is the right word, but I feel like other people don't really understand. And then I got on the trail, and then I met all these people that are also through hikers, and they're from all over the country.
Yeah.
So it's like people come from really far-ranging areas, but they all are kind of drawn to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
How did your friends and family kind of react when they found out that you wanted to get into this?
Well, I guess it's not, I've always day hiked and things like that, so it wasn't too far away from my norm. My husband was very happy that I found a group to hike with because he was not into the whole solo thing at the time. Still working on that, but I do hope to be able to solo hike at some point and do something like that for myself.
Okay, so that's the goal, to do these guided trips for a while until you feel comfortable to go on your own?
Yeah, I think my comfort level has grown quite a bit over the last year, and I would take on probably a smaller solo hike at first. I feel confident enough that I could do that, and then would like to work into something bigger in the future.
Maybe you could walk me through your sort of experience with your first backpacking trip. What was it like to make that decision and then start planning and then actually get out there? Was it scary, or were you excited?
Very kind of apprehensive at first, just because it's you're going backpacking, you have to have what you need with you, and it's I was really stressing about there being no room for error. And but I found out really quickly that You just go with it, I mean, as long as you don't forget anything critical, I mean, you're going to be fine. So one of the things is like paring down enough stuff. It's just like you kind of get a sense really quick as like what's important and what's not important. And so that's been, even now, it's like I feel like I don't take a lot, but I still feel like I need to get rid of more stuff. So it's always, I'm always learning something every trip that I go on from other people, just watching them, looking at their gear, things that they talk about. And so I always come away from every trip with at least something that I can implement for myself going forward.
That's a good point. Are you talking about gear specifically, or like life lessons that you're kind of taking away from trips?
At this point, it's mostly gear, but at the same time, it's like, you do just kind of learn a different way to look at things sometimes, just depending on people's experiences and how, they take it. I mean, I think it's different for everybody in some sense, even if it's just small ways, but everybody has, their own thing that they're going for when they're out hiking.
Was there any kind of event in your life that sort of motivated you to get into this, or like what was your interest?
Not specifically like an event or anything. I've always just had a personality. It's like I always like to challenge myself, and so I would get into, like, I was doing more hiking, more car camping, and it's like, well, what's the next step? And so it's like, well, for me that was backpacking. And so that was just, I started thinking about it, start researching it some. Like I said, it was a process of a number of years before I just kind of fell into the perfect situation to move forward with it.
Yeah, it's kind of a natural evolution, I guess. What are your goals, I guess, maybe in 5 years after you're
in 5 years
doing this?
I guess I just keep I want to travel more. I want to go see more places, and I want to do it in this manner. And I do definitely want to do a bigger solo hike for myself. Like you said, it's kind of hard to take, a big chunk of time off from life and stuff. So I don't know, when that would ever come together for me. But if I could ever make it happen, I definitely plan to do that.
Cool. That's definitely the biggest commitment, is just time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, if you're going to do a thru hike or something, you got to quit your job, and
right.
And that's the hardest part for sure.
It's always one of the things that's like, well, if I were to change jobs, maybe I could take this gap in time and work something like that in.
Yeah, my thru hikes have always happened on like transition periods in my life. So the first one was right after I graduated college, and then the second one was, I thought I was ready to leave the UP, like I was thinking about moving out west or something, and then I did the Hayduke. And I was thinking that I was going to leave the UP right after that trail, but I had to come back and kind of finish up some things in the UP, so I stayed for another year. But then I was able to move out to Montana. So I think this next hike is going to be kind of a transition before I kind of put down some more permanent roots in Montana, I think.
Okay.
So I'm kind of ready to do that, and this will be kind of like not a last big hike, but big adventure before I start putting down roots, I think. What would you say the benefits of spending time in nature are?
Personally or in general?
Let's start with, in general, like, what does society think that the benefits are?
I mean, people do use the outdoors for a number of things, whether it's, sport or just for relaxation, things like that. So I guess it just depends on what type of person you are, how, what the outdoors means to you. For me, it's like solace for me. It's like just any type of being outdoors. I find peace in that. And so that's the biggest draw for me, is just to be out and my mind is quiet and I can just enjoy, where I'm at and what I'm doing and not have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, the quiet mind is a big part for me. Regular life, I'm just like always going and always have all these tasks that I have to try and get done for the day, and it's like there's so many things that are always entering your mind. But for some reason that slows down out there. Have you thought about why?
I don't know, because I've only experienced it in these large pieces of time, and most recently. So one of the first things I did notice is how my brain does go quiet, and I don't listen to music or podcasts or anything when I'm hiking. I'm just in the moment. And it's like, because I had somebody ask me, it's like, well, what do you do when you hike? And I'm like, I don't know. I just hike. It's like I never really paid attention to, what's going through my head. And then I started paying attention, and it's just like, my mind's just quiet, I'm like you, my mind is always going. There's a to-do list and things to check off and stuff. So just to step away from that and completely step away from it, it's just quiet.
It is kind of a weird concept to just hike. Like, we're so used to having to have some sort of entertainment or to be working on something.
Right.
Yeah, just to walk, it seems like so simple.
Yeah. Especially when you have for most people, it's multiple things going on at a time, all different sources of stimulation and stuff. So just to shut all that down is an experience.
The distractions is it's a big part for me too. It's something that I've been becoming more and more aware of in the past year or so. Just how many distractions I have in my life. Like when I'm at home, when I'm working at home, I'm in front of my computer all day. So there's that, and then I have my phone, and then there's the TV, and there's always people that are trying to get a hold of me and stuff, and it's just there's so many things that are trying to grab your attention. But I think in nature, maybe it's more up to you, what you choose to focus on.
Yeah, I think it is an individual experience.
Have you gone out into nature with the intent of kind of focusing on something or working through anything like that?
Not that I can recall. It's usually I crave it when if I'm stressed or something. It's just I need that little bit of time to just shut it off. So maybe by doing that, it helps me work something out after the fact, but I don't head out specifically to work through something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of times, a lot of my best ideas come when I'm hiking, or immediately after I'm hiking, just because you kind of get that distance to. I see it as a way to kind of distance yourself from whatever's going on in regular life, and then you kind of get a more of a big picture perspective of it all, instead of being so buried in the nitty gritty details.
It makes it easier to step outside of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. What comes to your mind when you think of nature? It's a pretty broad term.
Yeah, so nature, just being out in nature for me, it can be as simple as just sitting outside on my deck, or it can be immersed in nature when I'm on, a longer hike. I find, again, solace in it all. It's I will take what I can get when I can get it, and if it's just a little slice of time, everything, in that time frame is a benefit to me. So.
Do you think it's something that you need?
Yeah, I do. I know I do.
I know the answer for me. Do you think it's something that everybody needs?
I think so. I do. And I think people take for granted. It's they don't see it anymore, And so, they're really missing out on, whatever being in nature would bring to them, whether it's just, calm, stress relief, or, stepping outside of their comfort zone. I mean, like I said, there's something for everybody, and you just have to find what it is for you.
Yeah, I like that idea that you don't have to go out and do some big trip.
Right.
Like you said, just sitting in your backyard that's good enough a lot of the time. This gives you some time to think. So you haven't done a backpacking trip alone. Have you done much day hiking by yourself?
I have, yeah.
Do you prefer being alone, or do you prefer being with a group?
I would say for the most part, I prefer being alone, but I have found in the group setting, you're never always with somebody. You kind of come together and move apart. So it's just enough of socializing and interaction throughout a day that it's not overwhelming stimulation. I still get that time by myself in the quiet.
Yeah, it seems like you have more of a natural way of communicating with people out there. Because there's times when you are together and times when you're not, and it never feels forced.
Right.
I think. If there's something to talk about, then you talk about it.
Right.
There's no like awkwardness between like, just moving away. It's just like, the conversation has just kind of trailed off and people just keep on going and you just naturally separate.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there are benefits to being alone, or why do you like being alone?
I'm a natural introvert, so that's kind of my base point is just being alone and being in my own head. I know for, some people probably wouldn't handle that as well because they're just used to being around other people and they need that stimulation. So I would say it's probably beneficial for both. It's like, I get more benefit out of being alone, but I do enjoy the interaction, where somebody who has the opposite personality, might benefit from the quiet, but still enjoy, actually hiking in a group better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think I like being alone more, but I've learned to appreciate the group trips more too.
Yeah.
Because that sort of like team building and camaraderie that you get between a group too that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I feel like that happens a lot faster out in nature.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell me about your first backpacking trip. Did you know anybody else that was on that trip?
I did not know anybody. Yeah.
So what was it like to get to know them?
It's kind of like that first night when you're just kind of hanging out and you're just kind of getting to know each other. It's a little awkward, but once you get on the trail and everybody's kind of got the same focus, the same goal, people start to relax and interact more. And even just from that first trip, I made friends that I have been with on other trips now too. So I think it's a really good opportunity to meet people and to like expand your friends, even if they're just your friends in that specific scenario. You don't call each other up every week or anything. It's just like, hey, we're back together again. You pick up where you left off.
Mm-hmm. It's been the same way for me with people I meet on through hikes. I'm sure you've heard that term, trail family.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll be really close on the hike, and then we might not talk to each other for a year or something, but if we see each other or something, it feels like nothing changed.
Right.
'Cause you get to know those people really well. So what is it about a backpacking trip that helps you build those bonds?
Yeah, I think it's just you're cutting out like just all the noise of life. You're just stripping away the distractions, and you're in a different place, and you're all even though it's not like a survival situation or something like that, but you do have a goal, and there are struggles, and people support each other and encourage each other, and I think that just kind of just gives you the perfect groundwork for building friendships and things.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a survival situation without any of the danger.
Right.
So you're always working on stuff together, and I think that's kind of good for team building too. Have you taken away any life lessons from doing these trips so far?
One of the biggest things is just like me personally. I know that I'm capable. And I know that, if I challenge myself, that I can get through. And even if it's hard, I know that I'm going to push through and make it. So that's the biggest thing for me, is just that self-confidence that it builds. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, it helped me a lot with that too. I didn't really know what I wanted in life before my first through hike, or like which direction to take. Felt like I wanted to be like outdoor filmmaker, but that seemed like just a dream. Like, how are you going to get hired by National Geographic or something like that?
And here you are.
But after doing the hike, yeah, it allowed me to take those dreams seriously, at least. So I had a little bit of confidence in myself after that. Could you describe a hard time on the trail? Maybe like some challenging day that you had?
Yeah, so I actually had COVID back in August. And so prior to that, I was like, I would have considered myself in really good shape. I'd done the hikes, didn't really struggle too much. And then I did a section hike of the AT maybe about two and a half months after I'd had COVID. And so that trip alone it really kind of opened my eyes to how much that had affected my body and how my body performs. It was a tough hike. you know, it's just, there were some days that it was just like, is it ever going to end? And one of those days it rained start to finish. So it's just like, you know, you've got the physical struggles, you've got the environmental struggles, and then you've got the mental struggles on top of that. So it was really tough, but I came out of that knowing it's like, you did it, you know, and you can get back on track. You know, your body will recover, and you'll be doing this, you know, again, and it'll be better, it'll be fine. So.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
So how did COVID affect your body?
It really weakened me, I guess would be the thing to say. And my breathing, that was a bit of a struggle too, because we were in a section of the AT that had a lot of hills. So it was just, like I said, it was just a big blow to realize how much it had affected me.
I haven't hiked anything on the AT, but that's what I've heard, is that it's a lot of up and down.
Yeah.
What do you think the hardest challenges are to get over? The physical, like, terrain, or the stuff that's going on in your head, or the weather?
I think it's a combination, and I think again it'll depend on the person, like what affects them most. I know usually when I'm hiking, other than, you know, like a quiet mind, I'm always checking in with my body, like, you know, how does this feel? How's this reacting? And things like that. So if I am physically struggling, I know that is going to bother me. The whole, you know, an entire day of raining was not fun. It was very defeating. And so that, I think anything prolonged like that would probably really, really start to get to me.
Yeah, I know that feeling of just being in rain all day. It just kind of beats you down.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of that mindset. So one of the questions is, do you have any health problems that nature has kind of helped you overcome? And it sounds like the COVID thing was one.
That was one of them. I've always struggled with depression, probably from teen years and stuff. And then maybe about 5 years ago, I was just under a lot of stress and ended up developing anxiety. And so it's been tough coming back from that. But that's one of the things that nature does for me. Like I said, even as simple as sitting outside, I mean, that helps me, you know, calm my mind down, bring me some peace, and it helps me, being outdoors helps, you know, with the depression. I get seasonal affective disorder, and even though I think I didn't have a bad winter, that first sunny spring day is like, oh my, there's a huge difference. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I know helps me get through those things, and so that's why I try to make sure that I am getting outdoors, even in small amounts, just to keep that under control.
Definitely. Just on this road trip, it's been cloudy for the past week or so. Like, I've noticed an effect on me.
Yeah.
Just this morning I saw the sun a little bit at the sunrise, and it was like just so nice.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. But that depression and anxiety is a big reason why I'm making this in the first place, because I think that's kind of like one of the biggest problems that our society has right now, and I think it's kind of at the root of a lot of other problems that we're seeing. Are you comfortable with talking about what that feels like, or what was that like for you?
It depends. It depends on like where I'm at in that cycle. Sometimes it's just, you know, it's like just this feeling, a little bit of heaviness. That's kind of when the anxiety comes into play. Sometimes if I'm in a bad depressive state, it's just like, it's all I can do just to get through the day. I feel like I'm on this edge of a black hole, and if I'm just holding on tight to keep from falling. And I've never actually fallen, I guess you could say. I've never gotten so bad where I couldn't pull myself out of it. But when you do that for, you know, weeks, months at a time, I mean, it just wears on you. And I probably haven't been that bad in a couple of years now. So, but I've learned, the one thing about today in society is that people talk about this now. And, you know, there's information out there that didn't used to be out there. And so I know the factors in my life that need to be in place to help me keep it under control. And then the things that benefit me too, to keep me from, from getting too far into it. I can usually pull myself out of it.
Okay, that's a good point that people are starting to talk about this stuff. When did you see that kind of become a little more mainstream?
Oh, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe.
Okay.
I know it starts small and then it builds, and then now everybody talks about it.
Do you feel like the messaging on it is correct? Are they missing anything?
I think they do a pretty good job. I think one of the biggest things for me is like, I am not alone in this, other people. And it's okay to talk about it. It's not something to hide, and that's why usually if I do talk to people about it, I am pretty open about, what it's been like for me, because I want other people to understand, like, it's okay and you can get help. And, you have to figure out what works for you to manage it. But again, having such an open society where you can talk about it and then the resources are out there, I think it's really, I know it's helped me, and I'm sure it's helped a lot of people.
You're right that it's, I know a lot of people feel alone during that, because my girlfriend has actually dealt with a lot of this stuff too, and she's going to be hiking the trail with me this summer too. So we're kind of talking about this stuff and how she's going to try and use the trail experience to kind of help her deal with a lot of this stuff. But I know a lot of times she said that like she thinks she's crazy and that nobody else is like this and nobody else is dealing with what she's going through.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that are dealing with it on varying levels of severity. But she's kind of been in that really deep hole where she almost didn't make it out a few times. So it still kind of weighs heavy on her. So how did spending time in nature help you come to terms with this stuff, or kind of figure out what you needed in life?
Like I said before, being outside just kind of quiets my mind, and that's usually I kind of have like this perfect storm of things when they're out of sync. So when my mind gets going and I can't stop it, it's like that will trigger the anxiety of it. So I just know when I get in that place that I need to stop and take a break. And then because being outside is so calming to me, that's always my first choice, when I'm in those situations, is like, gotta get outside, go for a walk, go for a hike, whatever I can fit in. It's like that's what I would choose to kind of help bring that situation back into control.
Okay. So it's just kind of to like get away from it and to take a step back, kind of put that stuff on pause for a minute.
Right. And because my brain so naturally just seems to shut off when I'm outdoors, it's like I said, it's become the go-to for me to try to rein things back in.
On these backpacking trips, have you talked with anybody else out there who might be dealing with this kind of stuff? Like, have you ever had conversations with why they're out there?
Not in the sense where like I've asked questions, but I've been part of conversations. I found out that a couple people that I've hiked with a few times now are recovering alcoholics, and it's one of those things that it's like, I never would have thought, nothing about my interactions with you said that you've been on this journey and that you've struggled with this. And so to hear them, just to talk about it and everything, I mean, it's eye-opening to me, just to somebody else's experience. But then I think, again, you build friendships, bases of trust, and people open up to each other and share things that are really personal to them.
That must be a big part of why people bond so quickly and so closely out in nature. I think it is that kind of trust-building experience. Do you know why people trust each other so quickly?
I mean, that's a good question, and I have to just assume it has to do with the circumstances, of what you're doing, and you are kind of you're by yourself with this group of people, removed from civilization and, just the norm of everyday life. And I think you just build, relationships quicker that way.
I think Tony said that it's like a leveling field. It kind of just puts everybody on the same plane.
That is a really good point. That is. Yeah, because I know I definitely, I don't want to say I look at people different, but I go into it with a completely different mindset. It's not about, where you work and what you do in your professional life and things like that. It's just like we are all hikers when we come together with the same goal.
That's a good point, yeah. And it's kind of hard to tell people apart out there because everybody's kind of dressed the same way and
Right.
kind of similar gear. Mm-hmm. It's hard to determine like your socioeconomic status out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because you learn, I think, more about the person themselves without all that extra from, everyday life. And I think you get to know them more authentically when you're on the trail.
Could you talk about the differences between an average day on the trail compared to an average day in your normal life?
Oh, wow. Big difference. Well, everyday life is full of demands. It's like somebody always needs something, whether it's at home or at work. And, I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And when I'm on the trail, it's just me. It's just me and my thoughts and, one foot in front of the other. It's just completely different.
So what are your demands on the trail?
Point A to point B. Making sure, no blisters, staying dry, things like that.
So it seems like on the trail, your concerns or your demands are kind of more self-centered, if anything.
Yeah.
And that might sound like a bad thing. Do you think it is a bad thing?
I don't think so. And especially, I would say from a female's perspective, definitely we tend to not focus on ourselves in the everyday life. So to be able to separate like that and focus on ourselves, it's probably healthy for us mentally. We get to think about things we wouldn't maybe necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis because we don't focus on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I found that a lot of people out there, well, just people in general, most people are really decent people and they just want to help and they want to make things better. But a lot of people tend to focus on stuff that's outside of them and they want to fix the world, but they haven't really put any work into themselves.
Right.
And it's just kind of my personal belief that if you want to fix the world, you have to fix yourself first. Mm-hmm. So it's not selfish or anything like that to focus on yourself.
I think we're all healthiest when we have a solid foundation of our own, a personal foundation. And from there, you can, like you said, you can fight the battles of the world as long as your footing is solid.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you've kind of gotten in touch with yourself more from these trips?
They help, they help in a way that, again, I can focus on me and whatever happens to be going on in my life that I'm thinking about. It gives me that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this a little bit. What, from kind of a society's point of view, what do people think nature is good for?
Yeah, I think it depends on who you are. Like I said, I think a lot of people, you just take it for granted. Some people it's just it's a entertainment thing we do maybe on the weekends or something like that. I think there are a lot of benefits from being out in nature that people just don't realize are there or aren't getting because they don't see it anymore. It's like we see nature when we go on vacation. That's kind of how I think the majority of people consider being outdoors.
And do you think that's a good way to look at it, or is there a better way to look at it?
Yeah, I just for me personally, being outdoors is a huge part of my life, and I think more people would find some sort of solace or just an opportunity to decompress. If they just took the time to spend outdoors a little more.
Mm-hmm. How has nature changed, or has it not changed your relationship with your own body?
Like I said, I like to challenge myself, and so it gives me a whole new scope of ways to do that. So I'm always thinking ahead. It's like, so what do I need my body to do to accomplish this? And then what are those steps that we take to get to, you know, that goal? So I'm always very focused on, you know, what is my next goal physically, you know, and then mapping out those steps to achieve that.
Okay. Do you like, when you're in nature or backpacking, do you like having a goal that you're trying to get to, or is your goal to just kind of spend time out there and just be there?
I would say I had an experience a couple years ago. I did an endurance hike, and this is what like vaulted me like really back into like trying to get into backpacking and stuff again. So it was 22 miles, and I did it in like 8.5 hours. And on that, besides everything else that's going through your head, you know, just the physical pain that you're in and the mental battles and everything, it's just like, this kind of isn't fun, because I am just trying to hurry and get these miles in a certain amount of time. And it's like, no, I wanted to be able to just take my time and take it in. I feel like I'm not getting what I should out of this experience. So on one hand, I mean, it was good. I wanted the challenge of it, and I did it. But it also opened my eyes to the fact that this is not the kind of hiking that I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of wrestle with that too, especially on through hikes. I'll get to a place that I just want to hang out for a day.
Yeah.
But you have to get your miles in. And
right.
Sometimes it's kind of a hard decision to make. Mm-hmm. I've kind of found that a lot of people who do this stuff, they have like a balance between like super goal oriented and not goal oriented. They just want to spend time out there. Mm-hmm. And everybody kind of has their own balance of that. So would you say that you lean towards the more just kind of taking your time and being out there?
I mean, I'm definitely one of those, like, if I have a plan, I'm a big planner, so I probably would like to stick to the plan, but I wouldn't want to plan so aggressively that I couldn't just enjoy myself while I was hiking.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, I think. Yeah, I mean, I like getting to that goal, especially. It kind of depends what I have time for, really. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself a religious person or spiritual in any way?
I'm a Christian.
And is there any kind of relationship between Christianity and nature for you?
I mean, I think so. For me, it's like it gives me the opportunity to just appreciate what I consider, you know, creation, and just, you know, to see it in a different way that I don't see it every day, and to get to witness things in nature that, you know, you don't on your commute to work or something like that. So to me, it's just a chance to recognize and appreciate, you know, my surroundings and what was given to me.
Okay. A couple days ago, I talked to a guy pretty much because he's a pretty devout Christian, and we had some good conversations just over email about his beliefs and how they kind of intertwine with nature. Mm-hmm. So we had a long conversation about that. When you're in nature, do you feel like, I guess, is nature the same as God? Are those interchangeable, or how do you see it?
No, I wouldn't consider them the same. You know, I think, you know, one is a gift, you know, but no, I wouldn't consider them the same.
Yeah, I think he's kind of said that his beliefs were that nature is basically like a creation of God, or like a manifestation of God in the physical world, maybe. Mm. Something like that.
Sure.
Do your beliefs, how much do they like guide you in life, I guess?
I mean, I would say that they do, kind of like just that inner moral compass, you know, and again, just when it comes down to certain things, it's just like, you know, I don't have control really over anything. I mean, a little bit, but, you know, in the big picture, it's like I don't. And sometimes just being able to remember that allows you to, you know, just give it away, that stress or the burden that, you know, you're feeling when you're just like, you know, it's okay. Just let it go.
That's a big lesson that I've taken away just from nature, is that I'm not in control.
Yeah.
There's like a very small number of things that I can control, but outside of that, it's like, it's not even worth worrying about.
Right.
So one of the goals with this movie, with it being called Mind, Body, and Soul, the soul aspect is basically just to explore like what the soul is and what that means to people, because that's a pretty loaded term, and I think everybody kind of has different ideas about what that is.
Sure.
And a lot of people, if you start talking about the soul, they'll just write you off right away as some kind of hippie or something. How do you think about the soul?
I think the soul is just what, for me, it's just what is my deepest self, you know, when you peel back the layers and tune out all the noise. It's like, you know, that is what I would consider my soul to be. And I know in more recent years, it's like I've tried to focus a little more on, you know, like, who am I and what do I want out of life, you know, and then trying to, you know, pursue those things, you know, whether it's an actual like physical accomplishment, or maybe it's just like, no, I need to just sit down and focus on this aspect of myself and just kind of wade through, you know, whatever that is, and just take the time to focus on it so I can be my best authentic self.
There are a few different directions I wanted to go with that, and I forgot. Do you think, do people need this aspect of soul in their life, or can people find a fulfilling, happy lifestyle only believing in like the pure physical world?
I think you could probably get by, but I think you're missing something important when you don't pay attention to that aspect of yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of the conclusion I've come to, because I compare our lifestyle to the way that people have lived for all of history, basically. Like when you think of like hunter-gatherer times, and I consider that to be normal, basically, because that's like what humans have lived for 99% of our history, so that's kind of like that lifestyle is what shaped us. And the way those people lived, they all had some kind of religion and some kind of spiritual beliefs. So I feel like it's kind of ingrained in us to gravitate towards that. What would your life be like if you didn't have that, I guess?
I think, you know, it's kind of one of those things that you almost don't realize what you were missing until you've actually started to experience it. So I think less of a sense of self, you know, beforehand. Like I said, I'm just more in tune with kind of, you know, who I am and what I need, you know, in my life. Yeah, and there's just like a sense of peace, I think, that, you know, that you may or may not have if you don't, you know, tune into that aspect.
That's a good point. How does spending time in nature help you become more in tune with that?
Again, just cutting out the noise and the distractions of everyday life. You know, it just kind of lets your brain focus on other things that, you know, that wouldn't come across in a normal day, because you just don't pay attention to those types of things.
That's good. Good way of looking at it that I haven't really thought about. So, kind of seems like the normal state of human beings is to focus on that stuff. But we have, maybe in normal society, we've like kind of complicated stuff so much that there's no time to think about it anymore.
Very true.
So, yeah, you have to remove some stuff in order to begin to see that, I guess.
Right.
How healthy do you think that point of view is in America? Do people believe in this soul thing?
I think you have, you know, different groups of people that are very aware and very in tune. I think some people are on the journey, and I think some people are just too wrapped up in, you know, the everyday distractions and stuff to even consider it.
Yeah, I believe that, definitely. One thing that Dale said, the guy that I interviewed a couple days ago, is that he thinks that pretty much everybody is looking for this, but they don't even know what they're looking for.
I would agree.
So maybe they fill that hole with buying stuff, or I don't know, being in a relationship with somebody they don't fit with, or seeking power or status or something like that.
I think that's one of those things when, when you do get the opportunity to start peeling back the layers of yourself is when you start to realize, how you fill your life with things that, you think are making you happy, but really aren't.
Have you made any major life changes since you started doing this backpacking stuff?
Like I said, I think I've been on a journey for a few years now, just trying to, which was prompted by the extreme anxiety that I started to experience. So it's been a process of changes for me, just, again, figuring out what's going on and how to best navigate that on my own. I've also have more of a voice in I'm the only one in my family that backpacks. And yeah, it takes time away from my family, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to say, but I need this, I need to have this. And, they respect that and allow me that time.
How did you feel after coming home from that most recent trip that was really challenging?
Yeah, always with a sense of accomplishment. You're fatigued, but in a good way. It's just this was not very pleasant and this was hard. And, at this point, I just didn't think that I was going to keep going. And then you get to the end and I would have been so mad at myself if I didn't keep going, if I would have given up, just seeing it through to the end and knowing that, I did it. And, it's just every experience just kind of sets you up, for other experiences. And I think you will, handle them better, the more experience that you have.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. And especially on my more stressful hikes when I'm dealing with dangerous terrain and stuff. I see that as practice for dealing with stress, basically. So the stress out in nature, if I'm trying to climb down a cliff or something, and that one wrong move could mean serious injury. That's it's very acute and it's very intense in that moment. But once you're done, the stress is gone. And I think in regular life we deal with a much lower level of stress, but it's kind of always there. And that wears on us for sure. But if you kind of learn the skills to deal with that intense level of stress in nature, maybe you can start to apply that stuff to normal life.
Everyday life.
And I've been trying to do that. I think all I have left is what would be your advice to somebody who's hasn't done this? What would your advice be to yourself just before you went on your first backpacking trip?
Just do it. Just don't stress about it. Just take that step and everything will start to come together.
Yeah, it's kind of a leap into the unknown, I feel like.
It's I don't know, I read somewhere, it's just you can only plan and study and read so much. At some point you need to quit that and just do it. And it's just so I try to keep that in mind when I'm contemplating doing something new. It's just okay, you've researched it, it's time to just take that step and do it.
How do you know you've researched it enough? Do you have kind of an internal sense that tells you it's just time to go? It's
just I think when you start when things you're reading or they're just repeating themselves, it's okay, I know all that I'm probably going to figure out about this at this point, and it's time.
Yeah, because I used to be that way where I wanted to plan everything out and get rid of all the unknowns and know exactly how it's going to be. And then I literally on the first day of my first through hike, I'm not prepared for this at all.
I've watched heard different people speak when they do an AT hike, and they're no backpacking experience, or I've only done this a couple times, and I'm wow, no, I would have researched that forever, trying to be mentally ready for it.
There seems to be two kinds of through hikers, and yeah, there's the one kind that plans everything out down to the very hour. They'll have a whole Excel chart of where they're going to be when, and those plans usually fall apart in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then there's the other ones that just wing it. They they've had a little bit of experience in nature, and that they just want to go be in nature, and so they don't plan anything. and that doesn't work out too well either.
I know, it's like I've always been like a planner and would probably be pretty rigid with that. But one of the things that I have learned is that, just let some of that go. It doesn't matter how well you plan, it's not always going to go the way you think it is. And just to be more relaxed and not stress out about all the little details like that.
My relationship with the unknown has definitely changed since I started doing this stuff. And it also kind of helps once you do something big, some sort of big accomplishment. Like, for me at least, it definitely improved my self-confidence. So by doing something unknown, I kind of trust myself more that I can handle it. Because I didn't know before. I didn't know what I could handle.
Yeah, it definitely, being out in nature, backpacking, doing the bigger hikes and stuff, you learn a lot about yourself, and you do get a lot more self-confidence just from going through the experience.
How do you see this affecting your life in the future?
I don't think I'll ever stop hiking. I think it'll be, just a normal thing for me. I will probably start hiking more on my own as opposed to always with a group, as my confidence builds and things like that. Ultimately, I would love to move somewhere that has more outdoor recreation. That would be like the big goal, but I don't know if that'll happen or not. But I take what I can get and go where I can.
One more. Do you think nature could be like a replacement for religion?
I think for some people.
Okay.
I think so. I think regardless of what your views are, whether you have, some sort of faith or spirituality or not at all, nature is something to everybody. And I think it'll speak to people in different ways depending on their background or, what they want out of it. I think it can be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Based on what you said about the soul, is that you have to kind of, everybody kind of needs something different, and you have to know yourself before you can kind of like figure out what you need. I think spending time in nature kind of helps you figure out what you need.
Yeah.
It definitely helped me do that for sure. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think that's it then. Thank you.
It's good. It's like I'm starting to get cold, shivering a little bit.
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Then head over to our YouTube channel called WildernessMindset, where you'll find a lot of videos that have similar themes.